And to the agenda, we will be speaking about general guidelines very fast, an attack case. It's actually just a very simple example, so we can build our discussion on. We'll speak a little bit about the risk management. We'll speak about the lessons that we have learned. And of course, we will speak about Stormshield highlights on this subject. And finally, we'll have a short demo. It will include both speaking about the OT cybersecurity from Stormshield network security point of view, and as well as a demo to our new version interface. And finally, we'll have time for the Q&A at the end of the webinar. You can see my contact details. Also, at the end of the webinar, I will share my contact details as well. So to get in touch whenever you think it's possible. So general guidelines will be, we are not going to specifically speak about security, and this is something a bit annoying personally to see that with this situation that we are living, honestly, and I would take your pardon for just a minute to explain about this point, which is not related to the session, but in general, with this time that we are living in, we can see that the amount of media we are seeing and watching every day due to this crisis of coronavirus, we are seeing too many things, like a lot of pictures, videos, information, news, and also some emails even about the same subject. It's being too much, and it is noisy, and it is reminding me of how much it is most of the time we are being, I would say, like directed in the market of cybersecurity to focus on things that don't really matter. And that's why when it comes to the security, there is nothing called that I will give you a 100% security solution. Get this, you will be secure. It's not the case. Actually, it's all about risk management. So when you are providing a security solution, it has to be about risk management. Of course, we are not going to cover the full scope of the OT risks, but only the common OT risks that we have identified recently in the field. Please use the chat box to ask any question anytime. If possible during the webinar, I will answer. If not possible, at the end, we will have extra time to discuss. I also, and I apologize for this ahead, that I have taken all the possibility to make sure that my kids wouldn't make any noise. So I apologize ahead if anything goes out of control, especially that homeschooling just started and it's really, really annoying. Now, on top of all of the guidelines, please be safe and keep well. It is our top priority, all the times, especially the people in the OT, in the operational technology. They know how much safety comes on top of all other aspects. So this is something we have always to maintain. And I'm staying home. Everybody is staying home these days. We're trying to work, and even the school are like now being done remotely. So it is a special circumstance, but also it's really good for our own safe and our beloved ones. So jumping directly to the example and the study case we are going to take. Again, it's very simple. It doesn't cover all the aspects of the cases, but this is just a very simple example that we want to build upon. So it's a usual day. Everything looks normal. Production going on. Everything is going fine. All out of sudden, as usual, we have a problem that is happening in the production, the OT site. And this problem, it could be caused by many different factors, but for our today's example, it's related to a cyber attack. Now, what happened is, normally, we have seen something wrong, so they started to investigate. Following to investigation, they have seen something corrupted on one of the PLC configuration. Something has altered the configuration and caused a small or a minor damage. But this minor damage had an impact to affect the whole production line, and then it needed big attention. Then they went to investigate about this issue to find that after tracking the logs and the traces, they have found that this is actually an attack that came through one engineering console, which was this engineering console affected, and they continue on investigation and forensic investigation in the network to find that even there was no physical access to the facility. They went through the physical access to check if there is anything wrong, but later to that they have found that actually it came from the SCADA network. and the engineer who was responsible about updating or doing some regular maintenance or updates, actually his machine was infected when he was connected on the SCADA network. And then with further investigation, they have found out that actually it came through the business network from the IT, and all the way that they found it came through a phishing email that caused all of this. And what is common also in such scenario, that it was a targeted attack. So it was an attack that built just only and specifically for this customer. Also, one more factor which was really and very scary is that this attack, after tracing it, they found that it was there in the network for months. And while they were busy in the investigation, also further escalation happened, and the malware or the attack that was designed to compromise this facility, actually it's just started to cause more and more damage. So the question is, in this case, they were not trained to handle such a situation, but however, it happened, and they don't know how to manage it. So a big question that comes following to this very simple example is that how do we act in a panic mode? So, now you are a security manager, you are responsible for this operation, and in this operation, you had all out of sudden this kind of attack. It's a new attack. It just passed all the security controls that you have and made it all the way to cause a damage to your network. Now, we have two situations here. One situation is that we are trained or we are not trained. So there are some people who are in shock and they are not prepared, and definitely they will fail in this situation. They are not trained to react to such situation. Where we have people who are well prepared, and those normally the people who will survive. And it is really a good, like it's something that is based on real cases that we know. There are some people who invest a lot of time and efforts and even money to make sure that if anything goes wrong, they know how to handle it. And some, they think that just by like installing a product, even our products or other products, just installing products, they are safe. No, it's not the way. This is one of the lessons that we have learned. And being prepared from the perspective of risk management, it doesn't mean that just again to have all the like best of a breed or the leaders in the market in some certain products and to fulfill your cybersecurity, but it is more into having a real risk management and risk analysis and defining what are the controls that you go to implement or procedures or whatever to make sure that you are able to handle this kind of risk. So point number one, when you come to the risk analysis, is that you need at the very first step in your risk analysis to identify the assets that are going to be protected. You cannot protect what you don't know. It's impossible. You can't protect something that you don't know. And it is very common that to see many equipments, many connected devices that they are not seen or not known in the full inventory view or full inventory management from in the OT side. And this is very challenging, and people in the field, they know this very well. Now, it comes also the question about, okay, we have some passive scanners, there are some IDS solutions. Normally, they are working on as a tab device, collecting logs, collecting information, building these nice maps and this nice conversation between different connected devices. Yes, but passive scanners and IDS are limited to what they are able to see. They will not go and scan. You can't have an agent, for example, installed in each connected device inside your plant to make sure to have a full inventory view and have full information about each and every asset that you have. That's a problem. Now, it doesn't mean that the passive scanners and IDS are not important. No, they are very essential, very important, but at a later stage when you are providing some kind of monitoring. Following to having the inventory of your assets and identifying them, then it comes that now you need to protect what you have, what you know. So in the protection, we have to define a lot of things. So we have to define the access control, we have to come to the awareness training, data security, procedures, maintenance, and protection technology that will be implemented. Taking some examples, when you speak about access control, for example, so it's important to have to build your access management based on the identities. Even the physical access also has to be managed, remote, local access, defining the permissions and segregation of the duties, and all of this has to be managed. Also, the awareness training is also very important. This is one important part of being prepared. But normally, awareness is more to the average end user, not for the security team. Security team must be trained in a different way and be more prepared. Then it comes to the data security. So you know there are data at rest and transit, so you need to make sure how they are protected. Is it important at which, like if you are at layer 1 or 2 or 3 of the OT infrastructure, is it important to have the data encrypted at this point, or when it's going from to the enterprise network, or when it's in the database or the ERP system, so or when it's exchanged with the third parties? So you need to define also where it is important, where confidentiality is important, and where it's just secondary thing. And then also, is the data being updated? Is the integrity has been checked? Do you have a data leakage prevention? Do you have a full separation? And do you have a capacity that is enough to store the data that you have to provide you with the availability, or whenever you need to track something back 1 year back, for example, to be able to see all this information? Do you have the capacity for it? Also, this is a very important and essential part. Then comes the procedures that to be set and to be followed in order to avoid the risks or reduce the risks, or protect against different kinds of risks. And then you need to make sure to have the maintenance in place, and finally to have your protection technology. Out of the protection technology, we take this example. So also it needs to provide you with auditing capabilities. Whitelisting, we'll speak about it more. Like one example is the USP, which is again the mass storage devices are actually a big risk. So managing them, I just referred to it by USP, but it could be anything else. And finally, also protocols, which is again today is a big question, and we have something important to discuss at the end of this webinar about protocols and also about whitelisting. Finally, it comes the later stages, and again, as we said, it's not like a risk management training. It's just I wanted to highlight a few points. So you have the following stages to be able to detect, then to respond, and then to recover in case of a disaster. Now, coming to the coronavirus example, what we have seen is that we were not prepared. So it is similar to you when you are under a cyber attack. It's true. We were not prepared. And then we had different reactions. The different reactions, the same virus affected different places, or I think today we can say all over the world has been infected by this virus. But we had different reactions. So some without saying anything negative or positive, everybody knows what is best for them. But we had literally, for the very same risk, we had different reactions. And we can't say that this reaction is good and this one is bad, or the other way around. But it is something also worth thinking about. Also, we had no vaccine and no treatment. And this is normally referred when we speak about like the signatures, or from the cybersecurity point of view, we say on the vaccine, like to have a patch for your vulnerability. And no treatment, it means that you don't have like a signatures for this a new attack. Now, following to this also, we have seen that isolation in such scenarios, when you are under a mass attack, it is good, but it wasn't really possible to achieve a 100% isolation. And in fact, even I don't know, I don't have statistics to show, but I think we all agree that it didn't even reach the 90%. Even when it was the most restricted countries, it didn't reach that much. So isolation as of 100% was not possible. Same as when we say like security as of 100% is not also possible. And then companies turned into remote workers. This is a very good example of how do we react. And something happens, some incident happened, and then we have to react to it. It's unexpected. We didn't plan for it. All out of sudden, we had to have almost every employee in the world to go and work from their home. The same thing for schools. The same thing for many other facilities, government, like everywhere. They started just to switch to remote working. Now, the problem about this, imagine the decision that was taken by some governments to have a remote learning platform to be planned and up and running in 3 days. And it happened in my home country in Jordan, by the way. And all of this, it's really a highly appreciated efforts, but I'm definitely sure it was not really like security was not the key concept when it was tried to when they did this. Because imagine that you have a functionality you need to achieve within no time, and this functionality is to have like the platform of e-learning is up and running in 3 days. It was kind of a miracle to have it up and running, but at the same time, definitely it was not taking into consideration any kind of security. The same thing, now I have seen today, for example, some guidelines of the remote working, many procedures, many guidelines, but definitely it was not the case, because I know a lot of friends, they just received an order that starting from tomorrow you are working from home. Okay, but they had to provide a VPN access, and in the VPN access, at the same time, we had thousands of incidents of like compromising a VPN server that is unpatched and hacked, and access to the information. It was sensitive information. It happened at the same time. Like the company information was shared on private networks, and then it was also exposed to compromise. No encryption solution in place. No. Many things were not taken into place. But imagine that this was a decision that has to be taken within like hours to be up and running tomorrow, working from home, but there was no time at this stage to do it in the right way. If you want to do it in the right way, it may take like a week or 10 days if we are in rush, but normally it could even take more to make sure that it is secure. Same thing, so you know that we had a lot of increased number of cyber attacks. Definitely, it's a fact that I think it's not something to argue about. And we had the complexity of procedures was a challenge. We have seen that in many situations, people were like uncertain about the situation. I don't know. Can I travel? I cannot travel. Can I go back to my home? I cannot go. Can I buy? Can I do this? I cannot do it. So it was not clear. And the communication was in parallel with a big noise also on the social media and the different media, providing different inputs, many different inputs. And it was really uncertain, and people were unsure in most of the cases what to do, how to follow. And to adapt to this situation, it was not also possible at that point. Then we had seen that the world is actually connected. We know this, but we also have seen that one incident could happen in one place. It could have an impact like thousands of miles away. And this also, we can relate to it in cybersecurity, and I think it's clear. And finally, and the most important thing that we have seen is that the social life order has impacted big time. This, in the same scenario, if you take it to the OT context and think about like an electricity company. So electricity company is, and we hope this never happened, but let's assume it happened, that there was a cyber attack to the electricity company in the distribution part, for example, or in any part, and then it was not able to provide electricity, which happened in Ukraine, if you remember. So this could lead to have a city or a country off the grid for hours or for days. And during that time, our routine, our daily routine is impacted, which means that maybe you go to the gas station, but they don't have electricity to use the pump to have to fill your fuel for your car, or when you go to other parts to the communication, maybe they don't have enough UPSs. Maybe it will be up and running for like 8 hours. After that, it will fail, and then it will start a series of effects will happen from one stage to another stage until it has a big impact countrywide or citywide. But the problem, when this impact happens, normally it takes like a couple of days to recover from, and sometimes it could be, in worst case scenario, it could be like weeks and even months. And we can see that coronavirus has a big impact on our lives, and now it's safe to say it's months of impact. Imagine how much our daily routine has been impacted. Imagine that you are now like stuck in a room in your home, and you have to work, and you feel all the pressure and all the other things in life that you were taking them for granted, but now they are not. So the cyber attacks on the OT could really impact our social life order, which is the most risky thing that we are seeing today. Now, taking this to the cybersecurity context again, Trained and prepared, I would refer to one example that we have from Airbus Cybersecurity is the Cyber Range product, which can have like kind of a training and simulation of a training where you can have your red team, blue team playing as a defender and other team as an attacker, and they can simulate a real life attacks, and they can be trained. Now, when you have your team trained, they will not act in a panic. That's the point. And then it comes to the deal with the unknown attacks, which will take like most of the time on the webinar. We'll speak about this part, how to deal with unknown attacks. And in short words, I would say it's all the controls that don't include signatures. So if your controls you are relying on, they won't work without signatures update, it means they cannot handle the unknown attacks. Because unknown attack comes, you don't have any knowledge of it before, so you don't have signatures, so it will not deal with it. Any other control that doesn't rely on signatures is a good control in this case. Now, also the air gap and cell segmentation, I would refer to a very nice guidelines that was released from Siemens in the, I don't know exactly when, just this year, 2020, it was, I think, version 2.1, guidelines for cybersecurity. And one of the points that I have seen, it has been repeated many times, is the cell isolation and segmentation. It's very important. You know, when you have a segmentation within your network, the most number of virtual cells you create is more secure, because if you have one of these cells has been compromised, it means you can contain the damage within this very small cell. It will not affect the other cells. It will not spread inside your network. So segmentation is really key and very important. And the same also for air gap. Now, to have an offline network is, again, a very important aspect. It's not a 100% solution, because there is nothing called 100% offline. You have updates, you have wireless network, you have remote access, you have different ways to get something connected to the offline network. However, any control that can help in reducing the risk is a good control. So when we speak about the offline, it could reduce the exposure to the outside network more than 80 to 90%, which is then, in other words, it's an excellent control. But it's not a 100% control, but still it's something very essential and very important. When it comes to access management, local and remote, it's not only to identify that who can access what, which is the case, which is very, very important, but at the same time to provide a secure access. So people who are connected over SSL VPN or IPsec VPN, for example, to the corporate network, they should also be filtered, not only like say, okay, he has authenticated, he has the right to access the server, but also they should not be treated as if they are a local, coming from a local network. They should be treated as if they're coming from external. So full intrusion prevention must be enabled, full inspection, full antivirus, full everything must be also enabled on their access and on their session. Emergency policies and procedures must be ready to be used upon set of triggers. So people are trained and they have policies in place. So an incident happened, multiple triggers have been met, and then so you have the actions clear for people to follow. This is something also important. And finally, I would say, sorry, not finally. So extra controls, finally on this slide, extra controls for phishing. Phishing is not only about mail security. That's the point. Now, mail security is the #1 control to provide like anti-spam and all the techniques around it. Sandboxing, things about the mail security is there. But following to that, the problem is sometimes it is bypassing all of this, and then a user is clicking a link. Now, this link is requesting a normal web access, for example, or downloading a file or something. So this access also from the endpoint point of view, and also from the network point of view, also you should have extra measures against this kind of phishing attacks. So most probably you need to make sure that, okay, even if the user was accessing an email after it was inspected and made sure it was clean by the mail security solution that we have, also the access of the user must also be filtered, must also, if it's like accessing a website, so a full inspection of HTML and JavaScript code to make sure that there is nothing malicious inside. And then we come to, it is a must to make the procedures simple and be able to be followed. So if you have a procedure that are complex, people will not be able to follow. They will, in panic mode, when incident happen, they will not do it in the right way, because even if when you are training them, you will see that even if it's like a normal training, a normal drill, they will not be able to follow 100%. So imagine when they are in panic and the procedures are not really clear. So then they will have the challenge and the issue to follow. And finally, it's a continuous maintenance and evaluation that has to be taken place for everything. And evaluation, assessment of the current situation from time to time to make sure that whatever you have from the controls that you have implemented are actually still meeting the risks that you have. And this is something has to be continuously going on. Now about the subject, and we are in the middle of the time, about the subject of dealing with unknown attacks, it's very challenging because we have these attacks are actually unknown. This is why it is very challenging, and also we have the offline. So you have your network is offline. You cannot provide a possibility to update it every time or in regular basis as it is the case normally in the IT network. And then also we have an operation that is very critical. It cannot be interrupted. I cannot afford any interruption in this network. So what is the best way to deal with it? Now, there is one way normally to deal with the unknown attacks is to rely on the anomaly detection. So you could rely on the baselining and scoring. You could rely on heuristic and statistical analysis, which is something very good, very important. Of course, today we are still far away from having a full intelligent AI that can handle these kinds of attacks because in such environment, in critical operations, it's not possible to rely on AI because they could take wrong action, they could have some false positives, and eventually it could cause more damage than the attack itself. That's why it's not something that we can rely on. You will see most the IDS and visibility normally they focus on this kind of baselining and scoring, and it is a good thing to provide visibility. But if it is combined within your solution, your DPI along with other things, it will be, I think, much better than the usual way. And also you have to provide a whitelisting. And whitelisting for the endpoint, I think it's clear to have a whitelisting detailed access, but maybe it's not clear for the network protocols, which will have our example on this subject on the network protocols whitelisting. However, for the endpoint detailed access also, it's not the typical like identifying an application and say it has like access to run or it has no access to run, but it could be more detailed in the OT context, which is something also we'll come to. And finally, hardening. So hardening the protocols, hardening the configuration, hardening the kernel of the operating system of the endpoints, hardening the resources, the critical resources of every system inside the network, which is all together in the OT context can really deal with unknown attacks. And it is what we are offering from Stormshield side. This is a combination of multiple controls that we have on the same single, on the same solution that we are providing, and we are able to deal with them. We will come into more details to make it more clear. Now, this is a very ugly slide, I warn you, because it's just a list of things that could just bring them to your attention about what we do, for example, in network security and what we do in the endpoint security. For example, in the network security, we have a full IT/OT protocol compliance whitelisting, which is the plugin that we will see in the demo. We have a full statistical and heuristic analysis. We have a zero-touch secure zone and segmentation. So imagine that you can deploy the firewall in between multiple components without changing any of their IPs or any of their configuration. Just simply place it, and you can have like almost on every port, on every VLAN, you can have a full segmented network that can be fully isolated, at the same time can fully communicate with other systems securely. And it can be a good convergence point between the IT and OT without the need even to change anything. Now, however, anything related to routing, anything related to different kinds of support of integration is there. But one of the modes that we provide is a hybrid mode that can adapt to multiple, or a transparent mode where it can adapt or can be connected to different segments of the network. Each one of them can be connected in a different way. One of them is layer 2, other is layer 3. This is dynamic routed protocol. This is just a GRE tunnel. This is whatever. And at the same time, the deployment mode of the firewall, which is something unique to Stormshield, doesn't affect the features. So you can still have full IPS, full everything, 100% of the features running without to be affected by the deployment mode. So this is also important. We have a host reputation scoring. This is a good indicator that we are using, where we can build a reputation per the host inside the network. So as long as we see more traffic, more attacks, more alarms on any of the hosts, so it affects the scoring of the host, which is being calculated almost every 15 minutes, recalculated again according to some algorithms and also according to the previous values. So in your policy, you can define the policy based on the scoring of the host. So you don't necessarily block the access to one host, but if the scoring of the host, reputation of the host goes beyond a certain threshold, for example, so it can be on a different policy. So it can change into monitoring only. It will not have any right access to anything inside the network, for example. So it can be in different scenarios. Now, also the passive assets and vulnerabilities scanner. It is a built-in feature that we have also on the network security, that this feature will provide a full visibility and full inventory view, full scanning for vulnerabilities for operating systems, applications, and also it shows a full help page, full detailed information about each and every vulnerability, and and also provides a link, for example, to download a patch to fix the vulnerability. So it is a built-in and excellent capability. But definitely, when we speak about vulnerabilities and passive scanners, normally it needs a regular update, but it can be facilitated through a very nice offline procedures that we are following. And then we are a technology that is focused on software optimization. So which means that we have every second year we have a new major firmware that is focused on the stability of the software and improvement of the performance. So we have customers who are with us for, like even the IT. You know, in IT normally you cannot. It's not typical to have one machine, one firewall, for example, to last for 10 years or 12 years. It is very common for Stormshield because every other year we have a new firmware that is focused onto more optimization of the software technology and the performance. So we have lower latency and at the same time we boost the performance. And it is, if you go to the archives of our data sheets, you will see some models start with certain performance numbers. After a couple of years, the same model becomes higher performance number. So a customer buy a product today, in 2 years, 4 years, he has like sometimes more than 2 or 3 times more than the performance he received the first day. So it's something that it is a continuous improvement that we have. Same firmware for rugged and IT models, so we don't distinguish between the models. So either it's a virtual, it's a rugged, it's even like implemented in one of our third-party technology alliance hardware. It's still the same interface, the same features. So it's one training for all. And at the same time, also you have everything on the same. So you don't need like one solution for an IDS, one solution for firewall. No, we provide full OT security solution and IT security solution on the same product. So this is the beauty of it. We have also, by the way, on top of that, a full HTML and JavaScript code sandboxing and cleaning technique inside the firewall, which helps to make sure that even if it passed the phishing, the mail security, when the client is clicking with a link, for example, so the code will be inspected and it will be cleaned, which is something unique. Nobody is doing it today. That we have the ability to identify the malicious code and remove it from the website and pass a clean page to the end user. Finally, we have a multiple configuration slots, a secure remote access management, and a lot of other things. Today, the focus will be on the network security. I will not go through the endpoint security. Maybe if you are interested later on, we could have a different session with you directly. Or maybe we could schedule a webinar in the coming weeks. Now, the most important point about the endpoint security is that it has no signatures. It's a total 100% offline solution. It's a security policy enforcement tool that we are using. This is an example of our architecture of our IPS, that it has a full firewall rules. It's now imagine all these components are a single process and working at the kernel of the operating system of our firewall. So it's not a hardware, different hardwares or a different software services. Each one is separate from each other. No, they are all a single unit, a single process. Now it provides a full firewall rules, a behavior analysis, protocol detection and identification, a full RFC compliance of the protocol. It has some selected patterns, so a very small database that we use. And then you have an HTML and JavaScript analysis. Then you have the host reputation and the vulnerability manager, all as a single process at the lowest latency possible with the highest performance that you can achieve within this kind of investment, I would say. So, of course, as an next-generation firewall, we have also all the typical features normally in next-generation firewall when it comes to security features, encryption, filtering, network, and like redundancy, the ACP, for example, load balancing between like up to 64 links, and you know the typical features. I will not spend time on it. Now, we'll have also some highlights about further example just to relate to the OT, is that most common attack sources of the OT are coming from internet, removable devices, emails, and network folders. This is like clear, and I have seen it on some statistics and some study from well-known vendors. I don't think if I can mention their names, so I will skip that. And also, you recall the example that we have seen at the beginning. We have seen that there was a spread from the business to the process network. We have seen that there was a detection was separate from the firewall, which is in line, and this is the typical way today. So you have some IDSs that is doing detection, and you have some firewalls which are blocking. And if something was detected, it will inform the firewall to block this IP or to block the access for this IP, for example. The problem is, and it's a claim that I don't have an evidence for, but it is a claim that I know from the discussion with people in the field, that they are not using this. They are just using it they are not using a full integration because they don't trust that the information will be provided by the IDS to the firewall is accurate. So they don't trust this kind of integration. It's not actually used 100%. However, it will only tell you that there was an attack. So just for your information, you have been hacked, but they don't provide a real protection in this case. We have seen also a weak segmentation, because one attack happened in one place, it was able to spread to other areas of the network. And finally, we had an issue that I did not speak about, is of the complex routing. It's always important to avoid having complex routing in the OT context, because when you have a problem and you need to shut down the plant in seconds, you have an issue that just happened. You need to provide access right now. You need to shut down something. You need to take access of something. You need some device has been malformed or corrupted. You can't spend like 40 to 50% of your time trying to understand your scenario, your routing situation, to know how to change or how to take action. Always try to make things simple as possible as you can. Complicating things is not for your sake. It is nice that you can show that I have a very nice complex routing or architecture, but when you are under attack, when you're having an incident, it's really not a good thing to be trying to recover from. So to take an example, SNS normally is our terms to say Stormshield network security, so the next generation firewalls. E is endpoint and D is data security. We did not mention here, but these are just example of how we are addressing this so from internet we are using attacks from internet using SNS, removal devices with SES. We have an excellent control about how to avoid all kinds of attacks, execution from removal devices and all things. For emails, we use the SNS and SES. For network folders, we have SES and the data security, which is something for a different discussion maybe, if you're interested to know how we provide an agentless encryption and how we deal between third party and how we deal internally, how to protect the internal network folder and all email exchange, encryption of file disk. All these things are on data security. Please reach out if you need more information. And then also spread from business to process, also SNS and SES. And SNS, the network security, is handling the other things. So finally, coming to the network protocols whitelisting, or what we call it in Stormshield, the plugin. And here I want to refer you to something, a very nice tool that normally in the networking most people they know about, which is the Wireshark. And Wireshark has something called the dissectors. The dissectors normally are exactly same as the plugin for not exactly. Well, they are similar to the functionality of Stormshield plugins. So dissectors, they are kind of an engine that reads the bytes and understand the protocol and view the protocol to us in this nice way in the feed. So like Modbus example, it's showing you that transaction identifier is number 50, protocol identifier is 0, length is 6 bytes. Sorry. unit ID 255, and you see all these details. And if you look down, it is actually just reading this hexadecimal code, or reading the actual payload of the packet and the headers, and translating it into something readable for us as a human. Now, this is the dissector of Wireshark, and the same concept for Stormshield is that we have a plugin that is attached to every connection. So first we have a detection of the protocol, and once we detect this protocol, a plugin of this protocol is attached to the connection. So every packet that is passes through this protocol is being inspected and compared in terms of the compliance check. So we make sure that the fields are matching, the structure is matching, the values we are expecting in each value in the exact position. So this kind of full translation of the protocol and full compliance check on the protocol is being done. So if you do it from our point of view about the whitelisting way of view, so you have the full information about how the good connection should be, and then you can block anything else. So it's kind of a whitelisting way. So this, and I'm telling you, my friends, is exactly the same what we are doing for IT for years. Since we started 1998 until today, we are doing this. We have developed, no, not exactly 1998, but a few years later, we have developed this kind of plugins. Now, we are focusing on whitelisting. So a single signature from this kind of whitelisting can deal with hundreds of thousands of attacks on this protocol, because of it just simply knowing the good traffic and blocking anything else. Now, it's not causing any false positive, because over the years, like all this year, we have developed many things to make sure it is not causing any false positive. But it's not only that. If you want to have two machines or two applications to communicate over a certain protocol, if you have a web server, for example, and you have a web browser client, both should understand the standard protocol so they can communicate. Otherwise, they will never be able to communicate if you are not using, for example, the HTTP protocol. So protocol is a standard, something you have always to enforce. So this is what we are doing. The same thing for all the protocols. You can see on the left the menu, for example, industrial protocols. We have IP protocols, like instant messaging, Microsoft protocols, and etc. Same thing, for example, for Profinet. And you can see like how it is the dissector from Wireshark, how it is reading the bytes and showing it to us into fields. And the same case also, we have our own plugins that can identify and realize these protocols. Soon we will have, for example, the IEC 61850 protocol, which is a very complicated protocol, and normally you have to rely on two solutions to provide the protection for it. So same as Profinet, which has two different parts. Some of the parts of Profinet is an Ethernet, other are TCP, and it's a very complicated protocol. So we have all the security solution for Profinet, for example, or the 61850 that is coming in June. Both are there in the same solution because of the plugins and the other features. Now, in the last 13 minutes, I will show you a fast demo on the firewall side, and just to give you the feeling how we are defining the policies. So, of course, we'll take something straightforward such as Modbus, but we will define something to show you something from the filtering rules. We'll see something about the protocol plugin, and then the protection profiles. I don't have in my virtual machines any data that I can rely to build a host reputation. I will try to see if we have enough time to go to. So normally this is a custom configuration example. It's not the typical way, but it is when you have something very specific, you want to have a hardened configuration and make sure that everything is accurate and a good policy to handle all the risks that you have in your communication. So this is the example that we are going to come to. So I will show you here in the firewall. So this is simply I'm logged to the firewall, and this is the dashboard. So we have two tabs: monitoring and configuration. This is our new version 4. It has the shape has a bit changed. Okay. I will take the questions after the demo if you allow me. I'm sorry. I will come back to the questions after the demo. Thank you. So we have the version 4, for example, monitoring and configuration are a bit different. Now I will show you also. I have, oh my God. So I have here a machine, okay, and it seems that it just rebooted the machine without asking my permission. Thank you, Microsoft Windows. And here I have another machine where I have a Modbus, SIM mod SIM32. It's just a simulator that can generate on certain addresses some values that will be continuously changing. So I will run this demo, and I'm shocked that the machine has decided to reboot without taking my permission. Now here, this is just a very simple like GUI and HMI, sorry, and it's reading information, supposed to read the information from this machine. So assume this is a PLC and this is an HMI, and it is reading the information. Now I have configured them both to go through the firewall, so I can see from the firewall side what is going on. Now, obviously, it is not reading anything at the moment. So this is not reading anything, or this not reading anything. And if I go back here, you can see that the first address and the second address, I have set them to randomize the data. So it keeps changing. Now, while this is happening, I will go to monitoring, to alarms, and see if I see anything. Just no, not in the report, sorry. In the audit logs and the alarms, just want to see what's recently happening. So I see that I have a Modbus unit ID denied, and the Modbus unit ID that was denied is number 1. And it is happening between my two hosts. One has the IP 100, the other one has the IP 200. So this is blocking the connection, okay? Now, you will see that anything is blocked by our IPS is something that has been, you can show from the alarms. Now, if I go to the configuration, and I want to dig into this configuration and see how to optimize this. I told you we have a few things. We have the filtering rules, we have the protocols, and we have the protection profiles. So I will go to the security policy, and I will show you what is the policy that I'm using. I'm using a very basic policy saying that pass from my internal networks to any destination on any port, just the IPS is enabled. By default in Stormshield, IPS is enabled. So you don't pick to later on to activate the IPS. It's by default enabled on any rule that you create, but then you can change it, of course. Now, this is a very basic policy. However, since it's an IPS, although I did not define anything related to IPs or ports, okay, it was able to identify the protocol, recognize its Modbus, read inside the Modbus to see that there was an request access to a unit ID number 1, which was not allowed by default, so it was blocked. Now, so the next step I want to see to go to the protocols, okay? And in the protocols, I will go under industrial protocols and see for the Modbus. And I see here in the Modbus, the unit IDs, I did not define any unit ID. And in the public operations, I have set everything to be blocked, all the functions to be blocked, okay? And down here in the Modbus address management, I have set everything, I did not add anything. So anything else is blocked. Just to facilitate this and see what the impact will be, I will simply come here and say, okay, so the unit ID is number 1. I saw it in the logs. Okay, so I just add unit ID 1 and apply and save. Okay, and I want to check in a second, okay, what will happen. So, okay, so no more I will have unit ID, no more unit ID, that was the only alarm I was seeing. Okay, now it started to tell me that function code denied. Okay, so if I refresh, you see that function code denied, function code denied. Which function code is function code number 3? Now, so obviously that when I go back to configuration, I have allowed the unit ID, but the function code here, if I go to function code number 3, which is read holding register, and allow me to go to the machine and show you where are the values. I'm setting the values here in the holding register. So this HMI trying to read the holding register. So read holding register number 3, function code number 3 on Modbus is set to block. So I will again say we don't have pass, it's called scan. So because it will have full inspection, and we'll apply and save the configuration and go back here to monitoring and just refresh. Still we are having function code denied. Do I have communication? Not yet. I still have this one doing changing the values, but here I don't see any effect yet. Okay, now I start to see another error, which is memory access denied. So read holding register. Now read holding register 0, it's trying to access a memory address 0. So if I go to configuration and go down and define a policy, say here, address 0, allow the function code, which is number 3, because I was trying to, I saw the function code was number 3. So I can define and say, okay, Z is read holding register number 3 is allowed. and let me check here. I see here that this one started to work and read the value, but this one is still not. So you see here we have two values, and this one started to work, but this one is not yet. Let me go back to monitoring and check again. I have now 0 stop, but now I have another one which is for number 1. So I have again access to the register, to the memory address number 1. So it seems that I need to not only add 0, I need to say from 0 to 1. Okay, so you can define a range also, function number 3. So I will save and come here and see that immediately it started to read the two values, and this is one method. Now, second thing that I can do if I'm scanning the configuration the last 5 minutes, if I'm scanning the configuration, so let me just again remove this, and let me again in the holding register say block, and let me also here remove this unit ID and apply and save. So it means that I have blocked the information. It will not receive any more information now. Everything is blocked. On the last value it read, it will be there. So I will go to the second thing, which is the application and protection. Sorry, the third thing. In the application and protection, I will go to search on Modbus, for example. So it will shortlist everything related to Modbus. I will take things related to this Modbus unit ID, memory access denied, and function code. So this is a good example. If I don't know the configuration I have and I want to scan them, so I can easily come here and say, okay, so if the function code is denied, is not matching with the protocol configuration I have, even though but allow it to work. If the unit ID is incorrect, but allow it to work. And the same thing, if there is no memory access for this address, also allow it to work. So what I'm saying here, from protocol I'm blocking, but from the application protection I am allowing it. So this will mean that it will not interrupt the operation, but it will help me to scan the configuration. So if I go to monitoring now and start to refresh, just in a second, let me come here. You see it started to flow the information, starting to read, starting to work. And here, if I refresh just one more time, you will start to see unit ID, function code, and address 0 and address 1. So I have enabled the protocol to say this is wrong, but then from the application say, oh no, allow it to work, but so it can generate and read the information and read the values. Of course, this is, I'm showing you this ugly view of the logs. However, you can use the many other tools that we have on our own, and also what we have integration with third party as well. So you can have much more detailed reports about it. So this was just an example. Furthermore to this is that you can always, again, it's not only to allow, we have a lot of things hidden behind this very simple interface. For example, you can define extra things for every alarm, like you can say send an email, you can place a host in a quarantine if it reached this alarm. You can take a copy of the packet capture, so you can capture the PCAP packet, for example. You can apply a QoS or something else. So we have many details that behind this, but however, this is on a very simple policy. I'm just defining an IPS. This is not a good way. You can always have multiple configuration. This is the beauty of Stormshield, that you have multiple profiles, multiple configurations. So if I have an emergency critical access list, I can have something in place ready. I can just simply select and activate. I have here, for example, detailed access. So I can just click here and activate this policy, for example. I can just say apply. So once I apply this policy, so this policy is taking place. You can see here, this policy is more detailed. So access for the firewall management, access for ICMP echo request only, not all ICMP protocol, for Profinet access on the Ethernet side and also on the TCP side, Modbus, so defining between host 100 and host 200 over Modbus, and of course here you can see that this one is being read from, and this one is reading. So you have to define from which source to which destination in your policy, and that's what's keeping it going on, because I have defined that host 100 is actually the source and host 200 is actually the destination on port on Modbus protocol, and also like accessing the internet, the network internet. So that was in simple words or a short demo about what we are doing. I know it's not a training. I just tried to show you a few things. Finally, before taking the questions, I just wanted to highlight that we are at Stormshield, a company originally came from two French companies, Netask, which was founded in 1998, and Arcon in the year 2000. Both have been acquired by Airbus in the year 2013. and became a wholly owned subsidiary of Airbus Cybersecurity. And in 2014, we have launched the new brand name Stormshield, which is providing products for network, endpoint, and data security and OT cybersecurity. Thank you, and I hope this session has been, or webinar has been, informative to you. And now I will come to the questions. Oh, I'm sorry, I was ignoring. I hope this was not a long time ago. Yes, it was like 10 minutes ago that you were not able to hear me. I don't know the reason. Okay, so checking the questions. Okay, can chat. Okay. Okay. So protocol identifications equivalent to application identification in next-gen firewall or IT/OT protocol distinguishing. Well, from Ahmed Hassan, well, the protocol identification is not equivalent to the application because it's not this way. These are different terms that we are referring to understand how we do the configuration. Eventually, it's the same. It's the same engine and the same concept. So I have a plugin for a certain protocol. Let's take HTTP for example. So in HTTP, it has two parts. Okay, so if I take HTTP, okay, so it has two parts. So it has the plugin. This plugin has a full details about from the IPS side, proxy, ICAP, analyzing files, sandboxing, analyzing, multiple things. And you can go into details about the HTTP protocol and full details about tuning the protocol if you want. Normally, the average user won't need even to come here. Okay. Now this is just defining what the whitelisting technique for the protocol. Following to that, you have from the application side, you can define more details related to the HTTP protocol. So if you type like HTTP, so you can see like many things related to HTTP. If you come, for example, to invalid HTTP protocol, this is an alarm could be set off in case of something that is not matching with HTTP protocol. Always and always in Stormshield, you will have a help page in vulnerabilities and alarms. So you can click on help. It will show you a help page explaining full details. If you come here, for example, details which version, trigger condition, and the complement. So sometimes you have a general alarm, so invalid HTTP protocol, and then you have some detailed explanation about what part of the protocol was a problem, a version, an operation, a missing proxy host, etc. And then you can have some references that describes anything related to this protocol. So it's a combination between both. And it's the same technique that we are using for IT and also for OT, and in the same device. Now, SNS and other tools are on-premise for all features, or do we need to connection to cloud, offload some advanced functions rather than signature and OS updates? No, normally, for all products of Stormshield, if it comes to the OT security, OT, once it is updated and prepared for shipping, it's and for after it has been staged and ready for installation, in the OT context, almost you don't need to update anything anymore unless you need to update the passive scanner of vulnerabilities. But from the protocol and the protection side, that's it. It comes with the firmware and that's it. So you don't need to have a lot of or too many updates in the OT context. But if it's in the IT, it requires regular updates to the IPS. You know, in IT, it's a bit more dynamic, and so it has to be connected to be updated from the cloud. Again, now it's okay. Okay. Recent OT protocols are encrypted. How you deal in this situation? Can you intercept at a firewall level? No, we today what the community of in general is trying to achieve, and I think personally, I think they are going in a wrong direction. It's not the encryption of protocol that is required, because when you have a connection from a SCADA machine to the PLC that is encrypted, it's actually you are securing the attack if the SCADA machine has been compromised to cause the attack if it's encrypted. Today we are in our roadmap, we are in the process of supporting OPC encrypted protocol, but personally we don't prefer this. It's the encryption should come at the upper layer, at the layers of at lower layers close to the PLC or Like when you come to the lower layer, it's not important to have encryption. Actually, you should avoid encryption because latency is critical. And when you add the operation of encryption and decryption, it is something could affect the operation and could cause more packet loss and all the things around it. So I don't think it's a good approach. However, if it is required, we will support it. We are currently in our radar. We have the OPC encrypted protocol. I forget actually OPC what it's called, the one that is encrypted, but it is in our radar and we are working on it. What is a unit for a unit ID? It's a definition of normally each PLC has a unit identifier. So it has an identifier that can define, like each PLC, you can have a different ID for it. So it's just an identifier of the PLC. SSL-based protocols, when it comes to like HTTP, FTP, SMTP, like POP3, these protocols, it can be a full SSL decrypted and full IPS, antivirus, anti-spam, all the instruction can be there. It is there. And just to refer to the OTs for those who are not from the OT market, OT is an operational technology. So everything related to ICS, Industrial Control Systems, and SCADA. So today we are referring to OT and IT. So operational technology, and we are the information technology. Can we have a copy of the presentation? Yes, I will share it with you for all the people who have registered. And thank you all. Any more questions? Please, you have my contact here. Feel free to reach out. Of course, you will receive an email from us, and I will share with you the slides. Thank you so much. I apologize for passing the time, 5 minutes. I hope this webinar has been informative to you. And thank you, and have a good day. Thank you.